The street lamp outside your window isn't flickering because of a bad bulb. It is counting down in a rhythm that feels disturbingly intentional, a warning broadcast in a language we have forgotten how to read. Look at the family cat perched on the fence. Its silhouette has distorted, the neck thickening and the tail moving with the heavy, rhythmic thrum of a prehistoric pendulum. This is the beginning of a biological correction we never saw coming. A moment where the genetic code of the planet has decided to wake up and remember a time before us. We are witnessing a shift where the world we thought we conquered is starting to reclaim its original identity, and the modern human is becoming a stranger in his own home. Biologists have long spoken of atavism, the rare and sudden reappearance of ancestral traits in a modern organism. We used to view a whale born with hind fins or a human born with a vestigial tail as
The
mere
curvature is
anomalies,
pronounced here.
hiccups in the grand march
Moving
of
up to the
evolutionary
thoracic.
progress. But there is a growing hypothesis that these aren't hiccups at all. They are contingencies. We have lived through a period of biological stability for thousands of years. But as the atmosphere changes and the Earth reacts to our presence, those genetic markers are beginning to unlock. This isn't a forward leap into a high-tech future, but a sharp, terrifying turn backward into a deep, dark history. The air we breathe is shifting, the chemistry of our soil is altering, and the ancient blueprints stored in every living cell are being pulled from the archives. It began with the birds, the most visible descendants of the terrible lizards that once ruled this soil. It wasn't a sudden transformation, but a gradual hardening of the song. The melodic chirping that used to define the morning has grown coarse, replaced by guttural screeches that echo the primordial swamps of the Cretaceous period. Ornithologists are reporting beak structures changing within a single generation, becoming serrated and heavy, designed for a diet that hasn't existed for eons. The delicate feathers of a common pigeon are beginning to resemble something closer to scales, shimmering with a metallic reptilian sheen. These creatures aren't dying out. They are reclaiming an ancient power that was buried under millions of years of refinement. They watch us from the gutters and the telephone wires with eyes that are losing their soft, avian curiosity and gaining a cold, predatory focus. The concrete canyons of our cities, once the ultimate symbols of human dominance, are now becoming the perfect habitats for things that shouldn't exist in the modern age. In humid basements and abandoned subway tunnels, the insects are the first to embrace the new, heavy oxygen pockets of a shifting climate. Dragonflies with wingspans the size of hawks have been spotted over the Great Lakes, their flight patterns no longer erratic, but calculated and predatory. We are witnessing a shift where the small and overlooked are regaining the massive proportions of their carboniferous ancestors. The shadow of a dragonfly on the pavement is no longer a fleeting speck, but a dark omen that covers the width of a car, reminding us that the era of the small and fragile is coming to an end. The sheer physical presence of these returning giants is a challenge to our infrastructure that we are not prepared to meet. The tension lies in the realization that our technology is utterly ill-equipped for a biological regression. We built a world of glass and steel for a planet of mammals and soft-bodied creatures. We didn't build it for things with chitinous armor that can deflect small-caliber rounds, or for predators that view a skyscraper as nothing more than a convenient cliffside for nesting. The conflict is not just between species, but between two different eras of Earth's history, fighting for the same square inch of soil. The modern world is a thin veneer of civilization stretched over a deep, dark well of prehistoric instincts, and that veneer is starting to crack under the weight of the past. Our digital sensors can track a missile across the globe, but they cannot predict the movements of a creature that doesn't follow the logic of modern ecology. Think of the junk DNA that makes up a vast majority of the human genome. For decades, science dismissed it as evolutionary clutter, the discarded blueprints of our ancestors. But in this era of reverse evolution, that clutter is starting to look like a library of survival. There is a chilling possibility that the environmental stresses we have placed on the planet, the chemical runoff, the radiation, and the shifting temperatures have acted as a master key. We have inadvertently unlocked folders of genetic information that were supposed to stay encrypted forever. We are not being invaded by an outside force. We are being replaced by the ghosts of our own lineage. The potential for change is already inside us, waiting for the signal to rewrite who we are. In the rural heartlands, the cattle have stopped grazing. Farmers report herds moving in tight, defensive circles, their eyes fixed on the tree line with a terror that feels older than the domestic bond. The wolves have changed too. They are no longer the sleek hunters of the forest. They are growing taller at the shoulder, their skulls elongating into something heavier, something designed to crush rather than just tear. The local ecosystems are collapsing because the food chain has been inverted. The apex predators of yesterday are finding themselves at the bottom of a new, much older hierarchy, and the rules of the hunt have been rewritten overnight. The silence of the countryside is no longer peaceful. It is heavy, with the breath of things that have forgotten how to fear humans. The atmosphere itself feels heavier, as if the air is thickening to support the massive respiratory systems of these returning giants. It is a slow-motion catastrophe where the weapons of the past, claws, venom, and sheer physical mass, are proving more effective than the digital tools of the present. Communication networks are failing not because of hackers, but because the physical infrastructure is being reclaimed by vines that grow with the speed of an ancient pulse, and by creatures that find our copper wiring to be a nuisance in their territory. The world is becoming louder, darker, and much more dangerous as the quiet efficiency of the 21st century is drowned out by the roar of the prehistoric. We find ourselves struggling to maintain our connection to the grid, while the earth beneath us is pulling the plugs. There is a psychological toll to this regression that is harder to measure but more profound than any physical change. Humans have always viewed history as a linear climb toward perfection. To see the world sliding backward is to face the terrifying truth that progress is not a law of nature. We are watching the familiar become alien. A walk in the park is no longer a leisure activity. It is a foray into a landscape where the rules of engagement have changed. The rustle in the bushes isn't a squirrel. It's a reminder that the Earth has a very long memory, and it has decided that the human experiment might be a temporary deviation from the norm. We are losing the comfort of our own narratives, replaced by a primal anxiety that we thought we had outgrown.
Look at the wear on
Scientists who once
This
studied the
specimen
fossil
hunted
record
large prey,
are now the
much
most
larger than-
sought-after experts, but their knowledge provides little comfort. They can identify the species that are emerging from the shadows, but they cannot tell us how to stop a process that is hard-coded into the very cells of every living thing. This isn't a virus that can be cured or a fire that can be extinguished. It is the life force itself choosing a different path, or rather, returning to a path it walked long before we ever learned to stand upright. The biological clock is ticking, but the hands are moving in the wrong direction, and there is no way to wind them back. Every attempt to intervene seems to only accelerate the process, as if nature is anticipating our every move and using our own interference as fuel for its transformation. The dark irony of this reverse evolution is that we may have accelerated our own obsolescence. By pushing the planet to its limits, we triggered a failsafe we didn't know existed. Nature isn't cruel, it is efficient. If the modern forms of life cannot survive the volatile world we have created, the Earth simply scrolls back to a version of life that can. The giant insects and the scaled predators are better suited for a high-energy, unpredictable environment than the fragile, specialized species of our current era. We are witnessing the ultimate recycling program, where the materials of life are being forged back into their most durable, ancient shapes. Our cities were built for a stable climate and a predictable ecology. Two things that are rapidly becoming relics of a forgotten age. As the sun sets, the horizon is no longer dotted with the steady lights of airplanes, but with the silhouettes of leathery wings. The silence of the night is broken by a low, subsonic thrumming that vibrates in the chest, a sound that hasn't been heard on this planet for 65 million years. It is a territorial call, a declaration of ownership that ignores our borders, our laws, and our sense of importance. The fear that grips the modern heart is a primal one, a dormant instinct waking up to recognize a predator it hasn't seen in 1,000 generations. Our ancestors survived these things by hiding in caves, and we may find ourselves looking for those caves once again, seeking shelter from a world that has turned its back on us. The transformation isn't limited to the wild. Even in the heart of our most fortified cities, the cracks in the pavement are widening. Strange, prehistoric flora is erupting through the asphalt, its roots strong enough to buckle foundations and swallow street signs. These plants don't follow the seasonal cycles we are used to. They grow with a frantic, prehistoric urgency, fueled by a sun that feels harsher and a soil that is becoming rich with the minerals of a forgotten age. We are being hemmed in by a green wall that refuses to be tamed, a botanical invasion that views our architecture as nothing more than fertilizer. The very ground we stand on is reclaiming the space we stole from the deep past. There are stories, whispered in the flickering light of candles, of people who have begun to change as well. It's not physical, at least not yet, but in their minds. A strange regression of the spirit is taking hold, where the complexities of modern emotion are being stripped away, leaving only the raw, cold instincts of survival. People are retreating into tribes.
I told you it wasn't safe.
Their
Why
language
didn't you listen to
becoming
me?
simpler.
Because I didn't think it would
Their
be like
eyes
this.
taking on a flat, predatory glint that wasn't there before. It suggests that the reverse evolution is not just biological, but psychological. The lizard brain is no longer just a metaphor for our baser instincts. It is becoming the dominant operating system for a species that is losing its grip on the present. We are forgetting the names of our poets and remembering the rhythm of the hunt. The conflict of the future will not be fought with drones, cyber attacks, or economic sanctions. It will be a struggle for the very definition of what it means to be a modern organism. Can we maintain our humanity in a world that is demanding we become something else? Or will we too find ourselves succumbing to the call of the deep past, allowing our sophisticated minds to be overwritten by the ancient, unyielding drive to simply exist? The lines between the hunter and the hunted are blurring, and the tools of our civilization are looking more and more like toys in the face of a biological tide that cannot be turned. We are being asked to choose between a future that no longer exists and a past that is demanding our return. Is this the end of history or merely the end of our version of it? The Earth has seen countless species rise and fall, and it has kept the blueprints of all of them in a vast genetic archive. We thought we were the authors of the planet's story, but we are realizing we were just a footnote in a much longer, much more violent chapter. The reverse evolution is a reminder that the past is never truly gone. It is just waiting for the right conditions to return. The shadows are getting longer, and the sounds of the night are getting louder. And for the first time in human history, we are beginning to understand what it feels like to be the intruder in a world that no longer recognizes our authority. We look to the stars for threats, fearing an invasion from above, but the real danger is rising from our own marrow. The genetic switch has been flipped, and the momentum is building with every passing hour. Every day, another modern trait disappears, replaced by a feature designed for a harsher, more violent world. The domestic dogs that once guarded our homes are looking toward the forests with a longing that is terrifying to behold. Their barks turning into howls that carry the weight of 1,000,000 years. The livestock we bred for docility are regaining their horns and their fury, turning on their keepers with a sudden ancient recognition of their own power. The bond between man and nature is breaking, replaced by a mutual ancestral recognition of enmity. As we barricade our doors and look out into the encroaching jungle that was once a suburban street, we have to wonder if there is any way back. Can the clock be restarted? Or is the reverse evolution an inevitable destination for a planet that has been pushed too far? There are no answers in the textbooks, only questions in the eyes of the creatures that watch us from the tall grass. They aren't monsters. They are the original owners of this world, and they have come back to claim what was always theirs. The dark thriller of our existence is not about a sudden death, but about a slow, inevitable transformation into something we no longer understand. We are the architects of a world that has decided it no longer needs us. The final realization is perhaps the most haunting of all. Nature does not make mistakes. If the world is returning to an ancient form, it is because that form is what is required for life to continue in the environment we've created. Our skyscrapers, our books, and our dreams may be the casualties of this transition, but life itself will persist, scaled and armored and indifferent to our passing. We are standing on the edge of a great biological reset, watching the familiar world dissolve into the beautiful, terrifying landscape of a forgotten era. The heartbeat of the planet is slowing down to a prehistoric pace, and all we can do is listen as the past breathes down our necks, waiting for us to finally step aside. The street lamp has finally stopped flickering. The countdown is over, and the first hunt of the new world is about to begin.